welcome to this special show, not from any fancy studios around in the country, but from a village called Dhanegaon in district Beed in Marathwada, one of the regions which is harshly affected by the drought. And not for 1 year, 2 years, it's been the third consecutive year of drought in this region. I am joined here by Mr. Yogendra Yadav of Swaraj Abhiyan, the organization that has entrusted itself with a Padyatra that they are doing. They're calling it the Jal Hal Padyatra, to go around and create awareness of the Supreme Court order, which has almost been 2 weeks ago, regarding drought and what the state and centre needs to do. Mr. Yadav, thanks a lot for speaking with CNBC TV 18. You've been on this Padyatra, this foot march that you're doing for almost 5 days here in Marathwada.
Yeah, about 100 kilometers plus, yeah.
Okay. In this sweltering heat, it's...
Well, they live in this heat, so the best thing we can do is to find out their condition by being where they are, how they are, in conditions they live.
What has been, the most significant takeaway that you would say in the 5 days that you've roamed around in Marathwada, trying to create awareness about what Supreme Court has asked the government to do?
In the face of a colossal human tragedy, it's business as usual. What we are witnessing is a huge tragedy. It's a water crisis. It is a crisis for cattle. It is a crisis of employment, of livelihood, deficiency of food. In the face of that, you expect governments, especially democratically elected governments, to run around, to make sure things happen. But on the ground, you don't see that sense of emergency, that sense of wanting to combat a crisis, wanting to do everything that's humanly possible. That's not happening. It's more like, well, files are moving, we haven't got orders yet. And that in the light of the historic order of the Supreme Court. For the last 4 months, when nobody in this country thought drought was an issue, when it's only IPL that made drought an issue, honestly. When our demigod IPL was interrupted that's when we Indians thought, well, there is some drought there. At that time, when our state assemblies and parliament were not discussing drought, it was the Supreme Court of this country which spent 40 hours on drought. They came with a historic verdict. The verdict says, no one should be allowed to go hungry. This is the responsibility of the government. The buck stops at the central government. You cannot pretend that you do not have funds for that. So the order said midday meal scheme should be continued even during summer vacation. We've been around. I've not seen a single school where this is happening.
In the 5 days that you've moved around in multiple villages, in at least 2 or 3 districts that you've seen, was there even one village or one school or one child that said they've been receiving some food to eat during this summer vacations?
Children don't lie. We asked them, what do you get? They said they used to get khichdi. Did they like it? They said, yeah, this is nice. And now chutti for school means chutti for meals. They said, of course, yes. Schools are locked. Nothing is happening. This in the face of a Supreme Court order that says during vacation, midday meal shall be available. Maharashtra government's affidavit saying that they were going to do this anyway. Central government's declaration that they had sanctioned funds to Maharashtra 6 months ago. And it's not happening, not a trace in sight. This is contempt of the order of Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had said do it within 7 days. So 20th of May, it should have been on the ground. We are now speaking today, 4 days later, nothing on ground.
Supreme Court had also said that children should be served eggs and milk at least thrice a week. Did we come across any of those instances? Some children who said they maybe would be receiving, because possibly not all Anganwadis or all schools would go against the court order?
Anganwadi is a different story. That's the ICDS program. In the midday meal scheme, no one in Maharashtra gets it. They have a month to implement. So technically it is not yet a contempt of court. But there's a spirit of the order. The court didn't say don't do it till the 30th day. So no, they are not receiving milk or egg, which is what they should have received. The spirit of the order was that children's nutrition at this stage in their life builds the foundation of their health for the rest of their life. They should get some protein. No, it's not happening. The order also said food to everyone, irrespective of classification. Basically, it said in the drought-affected villages, universal public distribution, universal ration. We saw that it may be Maharashtra, I would still say, is better than Uttar Pradesh, but it's not the standard that I expect from a state like Maharashtra.
But it's almost been 2 years since they've, implemented the National Food Security Program. In your assessment, in the places that you visited, what was your assessment of the implementation of the National Food Security Program in terms of the quantum of ration being distributed at the price that it is supposed to be distributed?
3 flaws that we discovered. One, there is a significant minority, anything between 10% to a quarter, who do not have any ration card whatsoever and are not receiving anything. 2, substantial numbers who have ration card but who don't get the quantity of ration that they are mandated to get, which is 5 kg per person per month. If you have 7 members, you should get 35, but the ration person gives you 20 and says get lost. Third, in some cases, they are made to pay much more than the legally mandated rate. I expect this to happen in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. I don't expect that in Maharashtra. This was an eye-opener. I would still say it may be a shade better than other places, but in drought condition, this is sin. I mean, corruption is everywhere, I agree. But corruption at the time of drought, and that too to deal with food, this is shocking.
As far as the government programs are concerned, a lot has been focused on providing food as far as Maharashtra is concerned. But you would say you've seen situations against what has been announced, or the kind of picture that the government has put forth?
Yes, the picture being put forward is everything is well. We have implemented an FSA, everything is all right. But the spirit, what is the spirit of an FSA? The spirit is no one should go hungry. And here you can go to villages, find people who have no ration card. And those who do not have ration card are more often than not the most vulnerable families of the village.
But
the
even
powerful
the Supreme
have
Court
everything.
order says that even if you have any sort of an identity card or even an Aadhaar card, you can avail of the
Everything. Supreme Court order is so powerful and all-encompassing. It says any citizen who can produce any identification must be given ration. Nothing of that. I mean, the officials have not even heard about that, let alone implement it. So we are several weeks away from a possible implementation.
The other major issue which the Supreme Court had dealt with was job security and employment guarantee scheme, Manrega. They had said that a committee should be set up, and at least in the next 15 days' time, there should be some amount of work initiated. Manrega has been a failed scheme, or called the failed scheme, throughout the country. What has been your assessment in the regions that you visited in Marathwada? Is it somewhere better, some jobs? What is the status?
I wouldn't say Manrega is a failed scheme in general. It's a flawed scheme which has been misused. And if there is one state which takes the cake in misuse, it is Maharashtra. Maharashtra gave this country Manrega because the EGS scheme, which was meant for drought combating. The employment guarantee scheme came up in 1972 as a response to the extraordinary drought. Manrega came up principally to combat emergencies like drought. So today, every village in Marathwada should be able to offer employment to those who are facing drought. Basically because, as Amartya Sen and Yogendra had famously pointed out, people die during famines not because there is lack of food grain, but because lack of purchasing power. And the way to give them purchasing power is to give them any employment. This is what Manrega was meant for. And today in Marathwada, in every single village that I visited, what I can tell you is, the scheme may be working, it may not be working. It is certainly not combating drought. It is certainly not providing employment to the needy. This scheme has been hijacked by the influential people in rural areas, hijacked by Sarpanch and their close persons. It is working on paper in some places, but not providing employment to the needy. It is usually just on paper, and most people in most public hearings did not even know if anyone had employment guarantee card in the village. No one said, I have received money. Although on paper, those villages had 10 to 20 lakh rupees spent last year.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up that issue because when I was touring with you, we reached some villages where the official data suggested that the man days accounted or registered for that village in 1 year has been more than 100 days, 110 days. But the people were saying against that, and no one had in fact received that amount of money. So is there the way the system has been rigged in these areas?
It's a classic way of foolproof rigging of the system. What happens in most of these villages is this. Sarpanch decides to allot some wells to be dug in private land. The well is dug not by the needy, not by the labor from that area, but by professional well diggers. A contract is given to them, they get some money, and on paper it is shown that that person and his family and everyone who is close to Sarpanch in the village dug the well. They get money in their account properly. The money is withdrawn, shared, so everyone is happy, except the people who actually needed job in this drought condition. So it's a foolproof rigging. It's the whole system has been hijacked in Maharashtra.
But some of the, there was a contrary to this. Some of the villages where I visited, apart from this Padyatra, where we saw some work being done on the fields through either Shramdan, where people contributed themselves, or some part of that people movement is converted into Narega and people are somewhere earning some amount of money. So not that it has entirely failed, but kind of misused in the way it is implemented.
As and where you saw what you did, that is the proper use of Manrega. That's what the scheme is meant for. I saw that in Uttar Pradesh, Bundelkhand 2 months ago. Hundreds of people working on open sites and hoping to get 180, 170 rupees back home probably in 10 days. That's what the scheme is meant for. I did not come across that at all in Marathwada, but wherever you did, that's good news. That's a microscopic cases, but that's exactly what the scheme is meant to do.
The other flaw that Manrega has always been blamed for is scarcity of fund, where if you talk to officials, they always say that center is not releasing enough fund for us to distribute, and which is why payments are always delayed. In some of my interactions with the local officials, they say fund has not been a problem, but people don't want to come and work for the amount that is paid, which is 190 rupees. Do you think that's the problem here in the 5 days and the people that you've met here?
Number one, it's wrong to say fund is not a problem. You just have to go to Manrega website and check it out. There has been a fund shortage. What is called delayed payment. Just look at the delayed payment for Maharashtra. It's huge. In villages here, people have reported not getting payment for 3 to 4 months. That reduces their appetite for work. Two, this is one question we asked in every village. When people said, we want Manrega, I always said, but mind you, you'll get only 190 rupees. Are you still willing to work? Most women said yes. Because remember, the daily wages for women in this part of the country are only 100 rupee. I met someone half an hour ago. 100 rupee, they were going to the field to work. They get 100 rupees. So someone who's willing to work in the field for 100 rupees a day, who's willing to go to the bakery in Latur for 90 rupees of net income a day, if they get 190 rupees, why would they not wish to work? So simple economics suggests that they want to work. They say they want to work. They queue up to list in, when we say, please tell us who wants to work and who wants to register, they queue up to get their names done. What more evidence do you need for that? So this is a hoax. This is a self-serving explanation worked out by powers that be.
One of the other bigger crises which possibly Marathwada is facing, which would not be seen in maybe some other parts of the country, is that of water. And water is become a prime reason for the crisis here, with tankers supplying water. Most of the dams that we also visited dried up. Supreme Court order also talks about water scarcity, water crisis, and how the government needs to work towards it. What has been your take on that?
See, our usual association with drought is water scarcity, and indeed that's a problem. We just need to acknowledge that drinking water scarcity is not the only face of the drought. Drought is about hunger as well. But yes, drinking water shortage is a very serious crisis here. And in all fairness, you cannot put the entire blame on the government. There is shortfall of rain. This is a rain shadow area. Things are tough. There is scarcity of water. The question that we need to ask the government is the following. Number one, did they not anticipate it? Did they not know this in the month of September? What plans were made? Number two, there was an enormous misuse and diversion of water for sugarcane in this part, in these districts in Islamabad.
That has been a traditional problem of this region.
Yeah, there is certainly, sugarcane is a traditional problem, but water bottling plants are not a traditional problem. Diversion for a beer factory is not a traditional problem. In the month of October, when you know you have a crisis on hand, you have every single data that you have today, why could you not say drinking water is our first priority, which is what the National Water Policy says. No diversion for next 6 months. That's one. Number two, for heaven's sake, why can't you say that now, today? Why can't you say, that is to say the administration, why can't they say no profiteering on water in this area? While there is a serious water scarcity, the industry which is booming in this part is water. Water tanks, water bottles, water cans, water little pitchers. It's being sold in retail, it's sold by ghada, all kinds of things. Profiteering by water in drought is sin. Why can't the government step in to say, no, this cannot happen? Why is it that private companies are taking water from available wells? Why can't those wells be made public property? This has happened all over the world.
Supreme Court is hearing a PIL on how industry should not be given water, but there's been no order as of now.
That's right. It's elementary thing. In drought-prone areas, in extreme water scarcity areas, in the months of water scarcity, I mean, this is elementary national duty to say, drinking water comes first, everything else comes later.
But the High Court order has said that drinking water should be the priority of the state as well as the district administration, and no amount of water would be diverted until the
trouble is that these orders sometimes do not spell out the exact details. And the difficulty is, we all say save water. We love these phrases. The Prime Minister says his Man Ki Baat, says all kinds of nice things, save every drop, etc. But no one has the courage to talk about this organized crime which is taking place in the name of water industry right now. That has to be curbed, and unless we do that, unless we summon the courage to be able to do that, we won't be able to do anything.
So if you talk of the social impact of this drought, you've been touring this region for almost 5 days. We've also spoken in the past the impact that it has on children as well as women. How do you look at it, and what according to you can be done to change that sort of a social impact or the long-term impact that a scenario like this has?
My colleague Avik Saha says this is women's drought. That is to say, the one category affected most by this drought are women. A, because they are the ones who have to fetch water, wait for hours and hours in queue to get water which they are entitled. They are the ones who have the brunt of running the family with that limited water and be indoors. They are the ones who face food scarcity and have to manage things with that. So in all our public interactions, it's women who came, who had most intense feelings, who looked up to every small detail, who provided the most valuable inputs. They are the worst sufferers. And I think in many ways the government already in some ways has done it. NFSA ration cards are issued in the name of women. And I think similarly there should be the job cards should also prioritize women because they are the ones who are most eager to work. And work in Manrega should be altered to suit what women need and what they can do. Working hours that they can maintain, given the fact that children have to be nurtured, nourished, and so on. We need to do that. And nutritious food for children. You see, drought, unlike all other natural calamities, has a very uneven impact. A flood or an earthquake flattens everything. Drought is a very dangerous calamity. It eats up the margins first. It picks up the most vulnerable and quietly takes it away. Therefore, women, children, Dalits in villages. They are the worst sufferers of water inequality. Poor people. So it's affecting the margins, and that's where we need to put all our focus. And that's why the effect of drought remains invisible. You go to a village, speak to the sarpanch, to 5 top families, all is well. You go to a Dalit mohalla, quietly spend an hour with them, that's when you realize how terrible the situation is. And that's where we need to sensitize our entire official machinery to that.
5 days in Marathwada, not everything would be so bad. Were there some green shoots that you stumbled upon?
People, first of all, I didn't expect people to be so full of hope. They were not bitter. They were not angry. We thought they could be sarcastic. Who are you? Why have you come? They were welcoming. And they offered us water. When they are battling with water scarcity and crisis, they offered us water. They offered us shelter, to offer a shelter to a large team. Water, shelter, love, affection, and hope. That's very important. And of course, many experiments, one of which we saw on the way, of someone using drip irrigation and virtually nurturing a small forest. So yes, small experiments of conservation of water which do work, which show us the way forward.
You know, we've spoken about what has not been done, since the Supreme Court judgment has come out. I would just play the devil's advocate as I end this interview. Do you think we are just being too cynical? It's just been 2 weeks. Maybe a program of this scale takes some time. Supreme Court has also given the government time till 1st of August, which is when they would review what the government has done in the meantime. Do you think we are too early to judge on whether the government is actually taking a stance, doing something on ground or not?
One should give time. It's a very large system. But on something like midday meal scheme, when you know the vacations are on and are about to end in Maharashtra, when the Supreme Court gave you 7 days to implement it, when you had said that you were going to do it anyway, and you don't do it, what do you conclude out of it? It's possible that my harsh judgment comes partly out of my awareness of what has not happened in the last 7 months, last 8 months. We were crying, we were saying to everyone who cared to listen, it's drought, listen, there's something very serious happening there. Nothing was happening. The government comes to the court and says, we have fiscal difficulties. All is well. No problem. We don't need to get into that. So that casual attitude, that appears to have continued. But no one would be happier than me if I'm proven wrong, if we see a slew of orders coming in the next few days and being implemented. The only reason why people like me are very, very anxious is that the next 2 or 3 weeks is the prime time for action. If you say our files moved and now we are doing it in the month of August, by then the worst is over. Those who had to fight their battle for life and death have fought it to whatever consequence. So yes, these are the only days, and if we don't speak now, speaking in the month of August is of academic or legal interest.
The country is moving toward the monsoon season. Maybe in the next 15 days or 2 or almost a month, the region would get at least some rain.
Hopefully, really. This is one thing we desperately need now. The forecast seems to be positive.
But it says it would be delayed by 15 days.
That's my fear, you see. And that's what we are writing to the Chief Minister. We are releasing a letter to the Chief Minister today saying, please have a contingent plan, just in case the monsoon is delayed even by 2 weeks. Right now, they are gleaning the last drop of water in the hope that monsoon is only 10 days away. Should it not come, are we prepared? Are we prepared for water? Are we prepared for fodder? Is that something we have made emergency plans for? That's what worries me as I continue to pray and hope that the forecasts are good, that we would actually have better than forecasted, which is what all of us should hope and pray for. But in a modern democratic state, why should we only hope and pray? Why can't we plan? Why can't we look ahead? Why can't we think long term? Why do we need only relief? Why can't we think of entitlement? Why do we think of contingency emergency plans? Why don't we think of long-term plans? Why do we have to take water by train? Why can't we conserve water? Why can't we use all our traditional water harvesting techniques
But
which country has used?
there has been a lot of all of this discussion, as well as a lot of schemes being announced in the last 1 or 2 years since the new government at the centre has come in. And this particular budget also focused a lot on agriculture and rural development, including Manrega. Do you think anything since February till now, some movement has happened on ground as far as agriculture, irrigation, loan repayment and Manrega is concerned, as far as the central schemes are concerned?
I would sound cynical at the end of this interview. If movement is movement of lips, we've seen a lot of movement from the PM, from the finance minister and so on. But if you actually look at hard numbers and say how much was allotted, for example, for Manrega, there's actually a decline in real terms. That 80,000 crore rupees for irrigation, no one has been able to give me the breakup so far. It's extra budgetary allocation. About major changes in schemes, we haven't seen that. But I really hope, the Prime Minister said some nice things 3 or 4 days ago. I really hope that some of these nice words translate into some action, that the government puts its money where its mouth is. If that happens, we can look forward to that. It's not still too late for the government. It's only 2 years. They have 3 more years to do something. But I continue to believe that at a time when Indian agriculture is facing its worst crisis in the form of current drought, when the agrarian crisis is deepest, when unfortunately farmers' movement is the weakest, we have perhaps the most hostile government to farmers. That is the tragedy. I really hope I'm wrong and things get better.
You're starting on your next leg of this foot march in Bundelkhand from tomorrow. What are your anticipations as far as Bundelkhand is concerned?
I've travelled both the regions. The reason why I wanted to connect Marathwada to Bundelkhand is just these are 2 epicenters. Marathwada drinking water problem is far more severe. Bundelkhand, purely going by rain statistics, is less affected than Marathwada. Unfortunately, Bundelkhand's infrastructure is much worse than Marathwada. Unfortunately, Bundelkhand has faced 6 or 7 droughts in the last 10 years. And the human situation was much worse in Bundelkhand when I visited it last. And it seemed that Bundelkhand was one step closer to famine than was Marathwada. We would go and review. It's another 100 kilometers of walk for the next 5 days. And maybe I should be able to report to you or your colleague what it looks like in Bundelkhand.
All right, Mr. Yadav, we wish you luck for both your continuing journey and the work that you do later ahead. Much thanks for speaking with CNBC TV 18 and best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.